I'm Doug Daugherty with Hamilton Flourishing, and we're so glad you're able to join us for another edition of this program where we look at the heart and the things that are going on in Hamilton County. Today I'm thrilled to have as our guest Commissioner Tim Boyd. Tim is the Commissioner for District 8, which includes Brainerd Hills, Concord 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, I don't see a 7. All of East Ridge and Missionary Ridge, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. To give people a kind of a geographic location of that, it's basically from the top of Missionary Ridge down that Brainerd Road to Lee Highway all the way out to Silverdale. So it encompasses all of Hamilton Place, half of Brainerd, all of East Ridge, Concord. Those are the parts of the county I represent.
I went to one of your meetings that was in East Ridge, and that was an enthusiastic crowd.
Very enthusiastic.
Yeah. It was good. Tim, you and I were chatting just a little bit before the interview, and I'd asked you a question about how you understand your role as a county commissioner. Could you kind of repeat what you told me?
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand the role of the commission. The commission is sitting up on the hill at the courthouse. We're kind of isolated. We do have a kind of inconvenient times that we meet at 9:30 every Wednesday, and we alternate between an agenda session and a commission session. But what I consider the role of the county commission, and this is all county commissions, is to take that 50,000-foot view of what is good or bad for their county, not discounting the fact of the importance of the municipalities within a county, but we're trying to set policies for economic growth, competitive taxes. We, the commission, want people to live in Hamilton County. We want to encourage business to come to Hamilton County, and good policy does that. Good growth policy, good plans of growth, keeping our taxes reasonable and competitive with our neighboring counties, not only in Tennessee but in Georgia, since we're a border county. And that's the role that we play. A lot of the monies that the county collects go to things like the jail, all of the education, public education, the court system, general county government, county public works, volunteer fire departments, and the buildings they work out of. So we have a lot of issues to look at and balance with a limited revenue stream. And the county commission, unbeknownst to many people, we can affect the back pocket of a constituent faster than federal government or state government. We can pass a resolution in 2 weeks, and then you're going to have to be paying more taxes. So that's why you, the residents of any county, need to keep a closer eye on your county commission to see where they're moving in their decision making on tax revenue.
I'm just curious, what is the total budget for the Hamilton County about? Do you know?
Well, the total budget, including public education, is approaching $700 million.
Okay.
So we're $750 million real fast here.
Wow.
And of that, a lot of talk has already been generated in the past year about how much funding goes to public education. Well, think in terms of, let's just make it easy math. Let's just say the total budget is $750 million. $537 million of our taxes are dedicated to public education here in Hamilton County.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
I've always thought of the county commission. I'm a lifelong resident of Hamilton County. I've always thought of the county commission as the conservative group within our local government. I mean, when push comes to shove, I've always said the county commission will do the right thing. And I've always had a high regard for the county commission, as long as they do what I wanted to do. So, can we see the first slide, please? This is an interesting question. Hamilton Flourishing did a survey recently on a lot of different things in Hamilton County. And one of the questions we asked was, what was your opinion? We asked about 600 people. I think the error rate was a plus 3 or 4%, plus or minus 3 or 4%. And the question was, do you have a very favorable, somewhat favorable, unfavorable, or very unfavorable impression of the Hamilton County Commission? And this was real interesting because if you look at the chart, the green is very favorable. The yellow is somewhat favorable. The blue is somewhat unfavorable. The very unfavorable is the pink-red, and then don't know enough is the kind of orange-brown down at the bottom. So actually there are 42%, almost 42% of the people have a favorable rating of the county commission, and 41.5% have a unfavorable rating. I think my math is right, or somewhat unfavorable. So the somewhat favorables, you can see that. So people, I think, generally think well of the county commission, but it's kind of split. So that gives you an idea. Now, I told you we've got cross tabs of these things, but I tried to read them yesterday on an interview, and I couldn't do it. That breaks this down into commission districts. So I'll be happy to share that with you at some point if you'd like to see that. So that's a view from the county. I want to ask you about something that's been hot in the news lately. My email has been burning up, and that's this proposed $60 wheel tax. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what you think about that?
Well, let's first let your viewers understand what exactly the resolution is.
Okay.
What the resolution is not imposing a $60 wheel tax on our constituents. It's proposing to place that question on a referendum, which will show up on a ballot next year for the voters to vote on. So if the voters turn out to the polls, they will determine whether the wheel tax is imposed, not the county commission. So let's get that understood real quick.
Okay.
So now, if you focus on Commissioner Boyd's opinion of the wheel tax, there are several questions that arise about it. Why $60? Where's this revenue going to go? Who's going to control it? What are we going to use it for? Those questions need to be answered. Plus, which ballot does it go on? Next year we have elections in March, August, and November. The resolution as written is proposing to have this on the ballot in March. I don't agree with that. Very much against that. I think a decision of this importance needs to be on the November ballot, because that's when the most voters turn out. And I want the most voices. If we're going to put it out for the citizens to vote on, let's have the most voices expressing their opinion. So I'm against the March ballot. I'm for the November ballot. The question of $60. Who came up with $60? I found out in just a short little bit of research I did, there's only 17 counties in Tennessee out of 95 that have a $60 or higher wheel tax. Of those 17 counties, only 7 of them have a millage rate higher than Hamilton County. So all of those kinds of things concern me. Where did the $60 come from? Let's compare it to the big four counties.
Mm-hmm.
The big four counties, none of them have a $60 wheel tax on their private vehicles. None. Zero. You would think Shelby, Knox, and Davison, who all have wheel tax. You know, that was the first counties I went to. What's their wheel tax? None of them have a $60 wheel tax on individuals. Some of them have a greater than $60 on commercial vehicles, but not just across the board. So that was surprising to me. Where did the $60 come from? Then the big question is, if the public decides to self-impose a tax, it would generate, depending on what the final number is, but let's use $60. That's the numbers that have been thrown out. That would generate between $17 and $18 million of new revenue coming in as taxes.
Per year?
Per year.
Oh, wow.
So let's examine who would control that. Well, as the resolution is written, it would go straight to the Hamilton County Department of Ed. Time out. I don't want any more funding going to the Hamilton County Department of Ed to have the school board have control over the funding. If the public is going to vote on additional taxes, self-imposed, let's put it under county general government, which will have a bigger overview of where this funding needs to go. And a huge part of that, in my estimation, should go to debt service, because Hamilton County has a lot of capital projects on the books. So let's fund those capital projects with a self-imposed tax by the public and show the public where their money is being used, instead of turning it over to the Department of Ed and it just melt into their $500 million budget that we don't see, maybe not any results.
Well, Hamilton Flourishing, we're for putting the ballot on November. We think that makes a lot of sense because of the reason that so many more people get an opportunity to vote. We've looked at the numbers, and I think it was something like 30-something thousand people vote in March, and over 100,000 people vote in November. And for $17 million a year, that seems a lot more.
Absolutely.
And so we're really for that. Which one of the commissioners came up with this idea?
David Sharp came up with it. And David Sharp replaced Joe Graham in District 6.
Yeah.
Much to David's credit, he is all the time tirelessly looking for increasing taxes to go to education, to promote the social justice agenda of our new superintendent.
Well, let's switch a little bit, because that's a perfect segue into where we want to go just a little bit. Where you and I first got to know each other was over talking about Unify Ed.
Yes.
And all our listeners may not know what Unify Ed is, but we hope you'll know a little bit more about it after this. Unify Ed was started in 2013-14 by Mayor Burke and a girl named Elizabeth Cruz, a young woman, to ostensibly to help children in the public education system get a better education. Well, it turns out they were a wolf in sheep's clothing, and what they really were about, they were a political machine made of ex-Obama community organizers who came in and began to run people, find candidates, vet candidates, train candidates, question candidates, and push them electorally in terms of having people out knocking on doors, taking them to the polls and everything for the school board. And in the last election in 2018, they also did some county commission. They went after the county commission, and 2 county commissioners were removed, Greg Beck in the primary and Joe Graham in the general election, by Unify Ed people. So we think they're here to stay. We think they're smart. They're well funded. Like it's hard to even explain. We won't go into that right now. But Unify Ed, can you bring up the next slide? This is a question we asked in this recent poll, and it was do you have a very favorable, somewhat favorable, favorable, or very unfavorable impression of Hamilton? No, that's not the one. Oh, this is the one, of Unify Ed. And this one is interesting because 7.43% have a favorable, 15% have a somewhat favorable, and then unfavorable, it's about 25%. Can you go to the next slide, please? That has the numbers on it? Yeah, there you go. So the very favorables are 7.43%, 15.78%, which comes up to about 23%, and the unfavorables come up to about 25%. So, but the big thing is, go back to the other slide, please. The big thing is don't know enough. Fully 49.75%, almost half of the residents of Hamilton County don't even know what Unify Ed is. And there are people, including me, who believe that Unify Ed is one of the most dangerous things loose in Hamilton County. We believe that their philosophy is undercuts both our way of life and our good government. We believe that they don't play fair. We believe that they have penetrated a lot of the institutions in our community. And I'd like to talk to Commissioner Boyd a little bit about Unify Ed. You, to your credit, when I first met you, had done more research on Unify Ed than anybody I'd ever seen. You had really dug into school budgets and read this document right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's the Apex report, which came out in May of 2018. No, 17. No, 18. Yeah, 18. And it was a manifesto put out by Unify Ed that demanded all these things of the school system and of the county government and everything, and to raise all this money and everything. And it had a lot of unpleasant, in fact, offensive demands of the school system. Tell me what you've been fooling with these folks now. Tell me two things, just in general. What do you think of them, and how dangerous do you think they are?
Well, Doug, I got directly involved with Unified Ed right after Mayor Burke introduced Elizabeth to Hamilton County. And in fact, I was at the very first public meeting Elizabeth conducted at the public library. This was just very, very soon after she came to Hamilton County, which was either in late 13 or early 14. And had more one-on-one meetings with Elizabeth than any other elected official. And the reason I did that was I wanted to fully understand what Unified Ed was all about. And as their name implies, United for Education, we all want better public education. And I wanted to understand, just like everybody else, how are they going to help improve our public education? Because as an elected official and a member of the commission, I'm probably the most outspoken critic of the Department of Ed in Hamilton County. So I'm always interested in anybody that's going to help us develop better policies and introduce new ideas for public education. I'm all about that. Well, what I learned real quick is, like you said before, this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. They are proponents of an ideology that is so far removed from a conservative's ideology. I started digging deeper. Well, who are they? Where'd they come from? What was their backgrounds? First thing I found out is they have no background in education.
It's true.
None at all. They're political organizers. As you mentioned before, Elizabeth worked very hard in the Obama campaigns, both presidential campaigns. She's an extremely intelligent individual, well trained by the DNC in community organizing, and well trained in promoting a front end message with a back end result. And that's what they've come into Hamilton County and done. And the reason they chose Hamilton County, now this is my personal opinion based on 6 years of studying them. Andy Burke had great connections with the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, very close to all of them. He was able to recruit Elizabeth here because he knew how good she was in the Obama campaigns. Otherwise, she wouldn't ever come to Chattanooga. Well, why did it come to Chattanooga? Why is the DNC interested in Hamilton County, Tennessee? They're interested in Hamilton County, Tennessee because they're interested in getting the governor's seat and turning Tennessee blue. What's the easiest and most important county to do that in to bring the most political impact to Tennessee? Hamilton County. Because Davidson County and Nashville and Shelby County and Memphis are already blue. So they need another blue, heavy populated county to try to get closer to pulling Tennessee to a blue state. So that's the whole agenda, I think, behind Unified Ed. Now, when we bring it back home about the Apex report, I'm on record as showing that this is the most left-wing, far-left, liberal report I've ever seen come out of Hamilton County. It's scary how liberal it is. And you mentioned this is a manifesto. Your viewers need to understand that's an absolute correct assessment of the Apex report. It's not a suggestion, it's a demand. And when I studied this report, the word demand, and this is demand directed at the county commission, not the general public. They use the word demand 4 times. They use the word must 54 times. They use the word integration 34 times. I mention integration because this document resurrects the idea of forced integration, which we've been through that 50 years ago. I think Hamilton County does a pretty good job in understanding what we need to do as far as placing our student population in our schools. This document is so far left. They use terms that I didn't realize how scary they were until I studied them. I got a letter.
Can you put the letter up on the screen, please?
I got this letter. It's dated May 3rd, 2018, and because it's addressed directly to me, as you can see, I was the only one registered, the only elected official registered when this report was released, and they did that at the Barking Legs Theater. I attended that because I want to know what they're all about. They sent me this letter, and the second paragraph, as we've got highlighted up here, is the most scary part of this letter. If I may, I'll read it, just a couple of the sentences. The report also contains an overview of the implementation phase of the Apex project that has recently begun. We have named the model of community organizing designed to implement priorities in the Apex project the Equity Collective, because we are facilitating action teams composed of they call them grass tops instead of grassroots, as well as grassroots voices. So, Doug, what caught my eye is, what is Equity Collective? So I started researching that term. As it turns out, this is, your viewers seriously need to understand this. Equity Collective is a term started by the ideology of collectivism, which was started by Karl Marx prior to the revolution in Russia in the early part of the 20th century. This document is a socialist document. Mm-hmm. And the people of Hamilton County need to understand that Unified Ed is a socialist organization. Social justice, equity. I've got documentation here on equity, equity, equity. And they keep using that term. And it's a socialist term to not use people's equitable opportunities.
Right.
They use it for equitable outcomes.
Yes.
And equitable outcomes is flatline socialism. What's good for the group, and they want to lower the bar to institute this ideology that's just frightful to me.
Yeah, and the thing I would tell the viewers right now is that there will be in 2020, there will be 4 school board races up, and one of them is a good friend, Rhonda Thurman, who's as solid as a rock. Then there are 2 that are, anyway, we believe are represent the Unified Ed philosophy, and then a third one that is, we're not quite sure where he stands. But you as a viewer need to understand the philosophy of Unified Ed, and everything that Tim said is absolutely true. I've been studying this thing for almost 2 years now, and the deeper you go, the deeper you find that this is radical, progressive ideas. And the scary thing about is that and the word equity is used to divide Hamilton County citizens. So they pitch equity out, and everybody says, well, here's how it works. The businessman hears the word equity, and he thinks equal opportunity, and he says, we need more equal opportunity. The other person, somebody else hears the word equity, and they think of the word, oh, that's equal outcome. That means everybody gets the same piece of the pie. And so they use that, and those two forces are diametrically opposed to one another. And it ends up creating division across the community. And the word equity has been being thrown around Chattanooga, not only by Unified Ed, but by a number of other organizations and institutions, to divide this community against itself. And it's a very scary thing, because we don't want a community that's divided. We want a community that works together for the prosperity and the flourishing of all the people here, from the youngest, disabled, to the elderly, and everybody in between. We want a community that's growing, that's creating jobs, that's creating wealth, that's creating opportunity for everybody. And that's what we'd like. That's what Hamilton Flourishing would like to see. That's why we're here. And Commissioner Boyd, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I would like to add a very important fact. The term equity is being used extensively in Superintendent Johnson's staff. He has a whole equity team. And when I compared the Apex report to the 83-page PowerPoint presentation that I set for 2 hours on May 4th and listened to Dr. Johnson's presentation, 15% of the ideology of the Hamilton County Department of Ed is directly related to the Apex report. Now, Dr. Johnson says the Unified Ed and Apex report doesn't have any influence on his running the school system and how he visions the school system running. Whether they influence him one iota or not, when you have 2 documents that have at least 15% of the same ideology, and knowing that the Apex report is the most radical document I've ever read, that is scary in itself. So the social justice, equity agenda that Dr. Johnson is pushing our Department of Ed toward is something that I'm adamantly against, and I will continue to preach against it. Is Dr. Johnson a nice guy? Sure. He's very nice. I like him personally. It's just that we are 180 degrees apart in how I vision this community moving forward with public education.
Well said. And Dr. Johnson is a very charming person, and he has charmed a lot of people in the community. But I think when people dig deep into what the philosophy is underneath this, it will be something that alarms them at the very least and may actually scare them in the thing. And, you know, we've had examples here recently of things going on in the public schools that, like the resignations at Tyner, the discipline whole thing, and that actually the discipline thing comes out of the Apex report too. They want a different model of discipline, and now they're getting it. It's called restorative justice, and it's a scary idea, and but the voters in this case need to learn about Unify Ed, need to learn about their agenda. And I will say this, that if you want to read a copy of the Apex report, if you'll go to hamiltonflourishing.org, that's our website, hamiltonflourishing.org, you'll find a complete copy of this Apex report there, and you can read it. You can download it and read it, or read it online. And so you can inform yourself about Unify Ed. And follow us, and we're going to be involved with them for the next couple of years, is my guess, if we do the right thing. Well, Tim, thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us. You do a great job. The people of East Ridge and Concord should be proud of you, and I hope they continue to return you to
Doug, thanks for
office.
the opportunity. I appreciate it. It was really
And
great.
thank you, audience, for being a part of Hamilton Flourishing today.
If you like this video, please subscribe. Be sure to click the bell so you'll receive notification when we release a new video. Be sure to go to our website, www.hamiltonflourishing.org, for more information.